I mean, I go to bed at 4 a.m.
Okay, see, when I was like, I could do Saturday morning, at no point did I think you were going to say, perfect.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to do Saturday morning. These people stay up all night and sleep in the day.
Well, you're forgetting, though, that's what I do every day, every week, is go to bed at like 1 or 2 in the morning and then get up at 9:30.
Oh, right, because you do have a job.
I do have a day job.
Yep.
I know it's only
It's
half
just
of us.
me.
Yeah.
I am the ungovernable gremlin.
Yes.
I like that.
Ungovernable gremlin is what they called me in high school.
Mm.
Hey, everybody. My name's John.
I'm Bob. He's Bi.
They're Butch.
And together we are the Butch and the Bi.
And this week, we had a good time crying. So much crying.
We had a good time seeing our friends grow and do good things with their lives.
We had a good time finally getting Katie Tarara on the podcast. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
What did you have a good time?
Oh, I also had a good time crying a lot, like wailing at points, for sure.
I had a good time watching someone make some poor life decisions with a romantic partner. Go ahead,
I
do
had a
bit.
good
Do
time
bit.
watching a villain arc back around like a sweet little boomerang.
I had a good time seeing lots of characters appear briefly again.
Yep.
I really had a good time being like, hey, there's that.
It had as many
person.
cameos as a Marvel movie.
Yes,
So you would
cameos
yeah.
is the word. Yes, I had a good time.
We had a
Seeing
good
my old
time
friends.
finishing out Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Came to a close on Apple Plus streaming TV, whatever that app is called.
It might be all that you get. Is that when you wanted me to sing the theme song?
Exactly. Yeah,
You're welcome.
that's the new intro song. This whole season I cried at that intro basically. So much
Yeah,
crying.
so much.
Yeah, we all have watched it. We've all talked about it together. We haven't specifically talked about the finale yet, but we when it came out, when they brought out the Ted Lasso pop vinyl, the first person I thought to buy one for after myself was Katie Tarara.
Yes, thank you. I love it.
And there was a one limit for purchase, so you woke me up and were like,
I
hey,
woke you up at
need
like
to
9 in the morning because I thought they would sell out. Because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, clearly everybody loves Ted Lasso.
Yes.
And apparently it didn't sell out ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was super available at many times. So it still is. If you'd like to buy more,
Well, I love the one I have, but
you can get one for the office.
it's true.
Yeah.
I do have a Ted Lasso poster in every place I work.
you
my
you were the
car.
person I knew that latched onto the Believe sign so hard, like in your car. Yeah, it
My
was-
office.
yeah, it's a good sign.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
I went back. I was telling them, Katie and Bob, Bob's sitting here as well. Hello, Bob. How are you?
I am sitting here.
Yes.
I lean away from the microphone as a default because I laugh very loud.
Yes.
And if one of you make me laugh, I don't want to have to
Gotcha.
then pull back and laugh.
This
so
is
I
our
just
workout
sort of,
morning routine. When we get up
Smart.
on Saturdays, we do workouts. So we're forgoing that.
Oh, great.
we're
do
doing
this
our
again.
ab crunches.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our ab crunches with Katie TTT.
Yes.
But we it was a really good season. But I went back and rewatched season 1 because I had not watched it since it came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't because we had started watching it together. Yeah, so I went back and rewatched season 1 and I forgot how much of a sad boy Ted Lasso was
Oh, yeah.
in that first season.
Oh, rough.
It floored me how
I mean, the
much
first episode.
his hair was giving Tobey Maguire and Grant Gustin a run for their money with emo versions
Yeah.
of themselves.
Yeah, that with his tousled hair.
That is Sudeikis' key move, is like if he's not doing well as a character, his hair is down in his face. Like
yeah.
I just saw a trailer. I guess We're the Millers is going to be on Peacock or something. So I just saw the trailer of that, and at the start, his hair's on. So I'm like,
Oh,
this is
boy.
his hair acting is consistent.
Yes, yeah, but they left it in a weird place with Nate. I was curious to see how that would be executed.
Yep.
And they really at that point they had set Roy up as a coach officially, which was really exciting.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I think the second season has really beautiful high notes. The rainbow episode where Roy stops being a pundit and comes back to be a coach, which is like just an homage to all romantic comedy bits, and there's so many tropes in there, is such a good episode. I understand why compared to season 1, season 2 was not as highly beloved, because I think season 1 is basically perfect.
Season 1's perfect, but I think season 2 kind of gave me rainbow, rose-colored goggles about the show a little bit of how, because it's always described as like, oh, it's the joyful soccer football man show. And that first season really isn't. Like, especially like I forgot Rebecca
Oh, yeah.
Walton is one of the best developed characters in television,
Mm.
hands down, because
Mhm.
I forgot how genuinely awful she was being
Yeah.
in that first season. Because the Nate in season 3, the execution on that was a bit wonky for me, but the recovery, the aftermath, and all that stuff that we will eventually get to, I was like, after rewatching everything with Rebecca, I'm like, oh, that's right. Ted would just like, it's fine, move on.
Right.
So anyways, yes. So you both, I'm sure, have thoughts. So let's start with the season 3 in general. And then we'll go into the finale.
So you've just made my point about season 3 of Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is great when it was 30 to 35 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
tightly executed with discipline and focus. Season 3 is, as it's quoted in the Variety article I sent you guys before this podcast, is 650 minutes over 12 episodes. Every episode is more than an hour long. They just lost their way. I love it. I want to know everything about these characters, but not all at once. Like, what in the world? Why did it? No wonder it took them an extra year to put it out. You couldn't edit it, and then they didn't. Like, they didn't edit it. It felt to me like they didn't edit. I think Jason Sudeikis is a brilliant actor, conceptual creator of comedy, and probably writer, but not editor. And showrunners have to kill your darlings. They needed this. This season 3 felt to me like they are a new. I mean, I don't know, like, you know how hard it is to edit an improv scene?
I wonder if that they all have improv backgrounds, that entire creative staff. So I'm sure that's part of it. And then also I'm curious too, because Ted feels, and I think it's intentional, but like Ted is a bit of a background character this season. And I think narratively I get why, because they really need to make it make sense. And they did in season 1. Because I forgot completely that the first episode is him literally being like, I'm giving Michelle space.
Right.
And so like, I think they did, the chemistry between these characters is so good that you forget that like, oh, he's there doing a job. He's been here for 3 years. Like, it's not like he's been here a decade at Cheers and they're friends. It's he came to do a job and like he did it kind of thing, and he misses his son.
Right.
But like he's such a background character. I think because it's this season is him realizing.
Yeah, that he's going to have to go. Yeah, which, I mean, you can still see the fingerprints of him all over. And I really loved, but my critique is that I wish it had been tighter. I wish it had been more focused. Is there any bit of it that I wish I didn't know? Like, do I wish we hadn't met more about the players? I don't think so. I don't think that the Nate Rupert storyline was particularly well executed or compelling. And then I do feel like it was very Deus Ex Machina. I was like, oh, okay, now. Anyway.
No, you're right, because that's my. So if we're talking any complaints, that's my only.
I still
complaint.
I want to be clear. I want to be on the record. I love Ted Lasso. Yeah. I will rewatch this series forever and ever, and I will never feel sad about it. I just.
Yeah, that was my big. Because we talked about it all season.
Missed how. The reason the first season is perfect is because it is so focused and so tight, and nothing is wasted, and everything, like every line, is meaningful. You have to watch it. I had to watch the first season with closed captions to catch the jokes that were happening from the soccer announcers on the televisions. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just so tight. And there were parts of this season where things weren't said, like why Roy and Keeley broke up, maybe alluded to one time when Roy got wistful about why he left Chelsea. But no, like, just say it. Say the next line, which is that what happened with you and Keeley? Don't expect Brett Goldstein to communicate all that with his facial expressions that don't change that much. Anyway, and then we heard all these things about things I don't care about.
So that was my big complaint this season, because I was not a fan of that heel turn from last season. That was the one decision I was kind of like, let's see where they go with it. It could be interesting or it could be bad. Because he like came out with that like gray hair, and it threw me off. The execution of the Nate thing leading up to when he met his girlfriend was the stuff that I really struggled with this season. It felt like they didn't want to commit to him being on the dark side with Rupert. So then you get this aura of him pretending to, like, he's just playing along because he's like, well, I'm the Wonder Kid and I'm here to do this thing. And it's like, I don't believe you. Kind of thing. Like, it was a the premise and the execution were two very conflicting things, but his relationship and how that helped him develop back into it helped him grow up, because Nate, I forgot how much of like the kid he was of the group. And I think the thing is the actor's a little bit older than a character that seems like they're maybe 21, 22,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to like
Nate
30,
Mohammed's older
33.
than me.
So it's like, oh wow, they really played him off like he had not fully developed his brain yet because the decision making was silly. But that was my main thing about this season was just the Nate stuff. But Bob, what about you? I guess since we're doing complaints first, do you have any?
I don't, because
Aren't you perfect?
No. As someone who watched the final season of Owl House be crammed into 3 45-minute episodes rather than get its full season to breathe, I will take more over less as far as character development, because in those 3 specials, as they were called, you could see all of the development they wanted to do in the season. And it was a masterclass in being like, we're going to do the best with what we have.
Here are the bullet points.
Yeah, here are the bullet points. You can kind of see there was kind of a montagey thing at the beginning of the first one to show like time has passed and here are some of the experiences these characters have had in a new space. And then it got back to the plot stuff, but there was still so much that could have been developed and seen, and it was just like Disney was just like, nope, we're not interested in doing this anymore, so Dana Terrace, do the best with what you have. I came from a place in like fandom of very like, we are studying the thing and we're going to know everything about it. I've been leaning back. I watch conversations, and that's part of why there's a lot of times I will see Jon talking to someone and I will see the miscommunication happen. I'll be like, oh, he thought that he thought they said this when they actually said this, and I watch him talk for a little bit of time, and then they're like, yeah, no, I agree with you. I said something totally different.
See, I assume Katie's out to get. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm not out to get Jason
No,
Sudeikis.
obviously, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I think he was a bit tapped out too creatively, which is why this ended with 3 seasons. Because they had 2 seasons of content in this season.
yes, that's right. They
Yeah.
said at the start it was going to be 3 seasons. He laid it out in the at the end of the first
He
season.
fell in love with too many of the characters.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then, that's the thing is like, yeah, I would agree that like it could have been snappier. But
And-
I'm also like, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I'm exactly. Like oh my gosh. Should we shift into things
We
we
interested,
love?
yeah.
Because
Go for it.
let me say this one thing that I'm going to crap on. Like, you know what we haven't mentioned and we won't is Zava. Like, why did Zava have to happen?
That was.
And then
yeah.
I thought, like, this is only interesting if we're going to see like the effect that Ted Lasso has on Zava, on someone like Zava, which is 0 effect, like
Yep.
never even interacted. So I wish that felt like a side quest that didn't need to be.
That was
Because
extraneous.
But I liked the
Zava
other
was
ones.
like based on there's like a
There's a
football
guy,
player,
yeah.
and like I think they did that with Jamie Tart a little bit originally, but we got to develop with Jamie Tart.
Well, yeah, I
Whereas
mean,
Zava
if
is just like-
Zava's there just to motivate Jamie to be great, like I don't think he has to be on the team, like to set up the like Jamie's going to train with Roy. Like I feel like that wasn't necessary.
No,
like
we
they
already
could have
got the
played
Jamie
against
realizing-
Zava in one game and
Yeah.
had Jamie want to be
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Anyway, but what I loved, one of my favorite moments, and there were a lot that, like when Sam Obisanya's father shows up in the locker room and says
Mhm.
Samuel, because Sam is so angry about the tweet thing, like. Wrecked me. And then they're cleaning up the restaurant, and then
The
call
light
me
comes-
Ola, and then the light comes on, and it's
Yep.
Ola's restaurant. I mean,
Yeah.
I cry every episode of Ted Lasso, but ooh, Sam Obisanya can.
Mm-hmm.
The be a goldfish mantra was thrown at Sam in the first season, and he got hit. I think of all the players outside of Jamie and Roy, he's the one that got the most development through the 3 seasons, and especially season 2.
Yes,
And
for sure.
he was given so much to go through emotionally that, like, man, you gave the one that's probably like the least justified to just forget it and move on, because like
Right.
so much is on. I mean, this season especially, like that the restaurant getting destroyed like it did, and like it was just, you're just furious when
Yeah.
you're watching it, and you're like, because you like, part of it is, man, this really sucks for this character that I really love. The other part of it is like, wow, this isn't unbelievable at all.
This is
This
a
is
thing
what
that has
happens
happened to
all
real
the
people.
time.
Yeah.
And so it's that thing of like, they do a really good job of taking an issue and putting it into the story and not making the story about an issue.
Mm.
And that's what I really loved about Colin this season, because I was a wreck the entire
Sure.
season with Colin's entire coming out story. because I didn't even pick up on it in the first 2 seasons. Keely, on the other hand, holy shit, she was all over Rebecca in the first season.
Oh yeah, Keely. But Colin says some things too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well,
I
There's, like,
think
a
in
couple of
season
Easter
2
eggs.
more, because I need to rewatch season 2. Because season 1, it's not.
And the only thing he says is when Banter becomes their sponsor, and they say without an E, and he says, "Oh, like Grinder," and then like they move on. It moves.
very
No
quick.
one acknowledges
Picks up on it, yeah.
And I caught that back then and was like, oh, I guess maybe he's gay, and everyone knows. Like
yeah.
Yeah, no,
'Cause-
you were like, oh, he's gay. And I was like, yeah, didn't you not?
Well, his-
There are vibes from before. It's like, yeah, that Colin, that's not surprising. Good on them for making it explicit.
Yeah, his trajectory wasn't dissimilar to mine in the sense of like, I spent a lot of time being like, oh, I know this thing about me, but not letting it be a thing kind of thing. And so like, especially when Trent saw them, so Love, Simon's one of my favorite movies. And a key point of that movie, a key plot point, is the like nerdy incel-y kid finding out that Simon's gay and using that against him, and then outing him in front of a football field full of people. And so I get very like, that was one of my biggest fears. And so when Trent saw Colin and his boyfriend kissing outside the restaurant, I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna make me hate Trent Krim.
I know
so much. And the turn they did with that was so beautiful in their little relationship that formed the season.
Yes.
That I just, man, I was a wreck. And then they had their kiss, and it was
At the end, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I love that.
Yeah. So shout out specifically to my friend Fox for loving Trent Krim from the beginning and deciding that he was gay a long time ago. And being so very right.
Sure.
It's one of those things where you see someone and see a character and it's like, you're like me, aren't you? And then you're proven right, and it's very good.
Nice.
So yeah, we love Trent Krim, and we love him being very gay and dancing and having a good time.
Yes. Yeah. Ugh.
How did we feel about Rebecca this season?
At the start of the season, like the first episode where she's like so furious at Rupert again, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going back to this? But she got over that pretty quickly. I enjoyed her. I think that was part of the Zava thing too. Like I enjoyed her turn as like the boss bitch who like basically negged him into coming to play at Richmond. But also I was like, you're just using Rupert's playbook. Like I didn't like that. But then again, she kind of got past it. I personally, I know this may be unpopular, I'm very glad Rebecca did not end up with Sam. The start of the last episode where Ted walks into her kitchen, again, excellent Jason Sudeikis hair acting in this moment. And I was like, let me tell you something. Sassy better walk in right behind him. I'm going to be furious. Rebecca and Ted cannot be together. They have to be friends. Like
I did not realize, because I normally when I watch
there's like
a
a whole world that
I normally
people who
don't
want that.
not do that with like shows. Like when I'm watching a show, I'll be on Reddit, like scrolling through the subreddit. So I had no idea how many people were disappointed that the season ended with them not being a thing. And I'm like, how could you get from point A to point B? Because their foundation, point F, yeah. Their relationship, the foundation is not built on trust. First off, like from the jump. So that's an issue. And then also they have such a beautiful platonic relationship. And like, it's not rare nowadays, but to have that good of an execution is rare.
I was going to say something that maybe is unpopular. I might ask. I'm like, maybe I'll say later, take this out. As a person whose life is built around platonic relationships, I would never want them to be together. The people I know who want them to be together, their lives are built around a romantic relationship. And that's okay, right? Like, cool. Like, I understand. But for someone whose like highest needs are met through platonic relationships, I'm like, that would mess that up. Like, that's not who they are for each other.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's still a sitcom, like that's a trope, but I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Well, I think it helped that they had the Jamie, Roy, and Keely stuff to distract that from the leads, because it's so rare that you see a show with a male and female lead that like it's not a will they won't they, because they only tease it a couple times throughout the show, but then it's very quickly moved on from.
Yeah, and I mean they're obviously attractive, consenting adults. They have a lot in common. But I mean, one of the things I loved about this season, and this, as we're talking about this, there are so many moments I love in this season. I just wish they had gotten to them more quickly. I think there was too much meandering, but I'm glad they were all there. When Sassy tells Ted he's a mess and she's not interested in dating.
Yeah.
Like, Ted Lasso's the great, what do you mean? He's the most wonderful, kind, thoughtful man. But she's like, oh no, God, you're a mess.
No, you're
like,
wreck.
I was like, oh my gosh. But she's right. And I loved that that's like how it is revealed to Ted that he's
Yeah, it's
he's a wreck.
Yeah, you were gonna say something.
Oh, the fun character development of Ted is that stewardess leaving after Beard gets off the plane and be like, what a jerk.
Yes.
And it's just like the funniest thing to just be like, okay, so you don't
Right. You don't know anything about this man. Your only impression of him is
And that's
he's heartless.
John and I were also talking about Ted being more of a background character, but also like the thesis of the book when he's like, hey, this isn't about me. This was never about me, is because like, as much as we love Ted, the whole story is about how your actions and your kindness to others ripples out and affects the community around you, which honestly, like,
hence the intro.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the whole show is just that's intro of him sitting in the chairs and them turning red and getting cleaned up and like, cause really there's like, I was telling you last night, I think, or the night before, but like there are 5 characters that Ted really affects. And that's what kind of ripples out. Cause it's Roy and it's Rebecca and it's Jamie and
Nate.
Yeah. Those 5 just, did I say 4?
I think you said 4.
Great. I'm sure there's another one in there, but those 4 really spread out to the rest of the cast in a way that's really beautiful. Because I think that's the thing, is a lot of the character development that happens for a lot of the characters this season that aren't directly affected by Ted. Like Cullen's whole arc is done only with like, I think, one conversation with Ted, but otherwise it's mostly like through Isaac, which came from Roy. Like,
Right.
So
Yes.
it's that beautiful thing of like, again, he came to do a thing. He did that thing successfully basically last year.
Yeah.
And so now we're just seeing him realize,
I'm done.
I need to go back to my son because this wasn't supposed to be permanent. There's that thing I love because like there are so many shows that are 10 years long that should not be 10 years long. There are shows that are 10 years long and I'm like, yeah, great. Give me more, whatever. But there are some shows that had a really great first like 5 seasons and then should have gone off the air.
Right.
And this is one of those shows that it wouldn't have made sense. The crux of the show was him leaving to give space to his family and that whole thing. And
being a fish out of water, he had to leave as soon as he knew what offsides was.
Right?
Yeah,
I know.
as soon
That
as he
was
knew.
so perfect.
Yeah.
It was,
them ending in a way that like shows you how effectively he changed the lives of Richmond and of
and how
just the
they
community.
reciprocally changed his life and helped him, because
Yeah.
that was the thing. He was like working more with college students, and then he got to be in a place where he had peers who were putting energy back into him, and then he was like, oh, I need to be kind to myself because I can't expect everyone else to pick up all that slack I leave by ignoring myself, and then he could be a better father.
Well, I guess we should transition into the finale, unless anybody else has any specific notes about the rest of the season.
I mean, we also haven't talked about the Keeley storyline, which I think, to me, that was a
That could've been
place
tightened
that
up.
could have been really tightened up and was just felt.
Because that episode, that arc was like 4 episodes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Should've
It
been
was
2.
like we could see that Jack was Rupert pretty quickly. Like, I wish that had been shorter, but whatever.
Yeah.
No, it was. There were moments throughout the season that I adored, as I've said now 6 times.
Yeah.
And
A
I'll
lot
keep
of the
thinking
stuff
them.
with,
I'll keep thinking of them.
Who's the
Yeah.
kid, the one that replaced Nate?
Will Kitman.
Yeah. Which, sorry, I saw the thing online and I need to share it here. I don't know if you guys clocked it. There's the episode last year where he dresses up his Beard?
Oh, that was this season.
That was this season?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's Will is Beard. Willis.
Oh,
Because his name is Willis.
I did not see
Because
that.
because he did the What You Talking About Willis a couple seasons ago or whatever.
Oh
and
yeah, I didn't realize. That
it's
he
him
did
just
that.
saying his name. And I
Yeah.
love that they really just like ham fist like
That-
yeah.
So that's one other thing I would say, that one thing we got in this season is understanding how Ted's investment in Beard in the past then brings him along, right? So
Yeah.
like that ripple thing you were talking about. So like it isn't that in the series we see what Ted impact was on Beard, but we got to see it. Which
We
was
know
cool.
that the relationship is
Right.
strong because of something.
Yeah. So getting to see that, and whenever I really thought that it was going to be Ted at Nate's door, when it was Beard, I lost it, and then that was a very
his
that was
whole
a very
story
powerful scene.
and
Yes,
Nate being like Les Mis. He's like, yes, it was like Les Mis. Yes. And it's just like that's honestly one of my favorite things about the season is there's so much banter and like seeing how the team has become a family and like all of their bits and how seriously they take certain things. Like when I love the moment when Roy turns to everyone after Rebecca leaves, he's like, you all know my ass is not hairy and none of you stood up for me. And he leaves and then like, he's right. We are cowards. And it's one of those things of like having like seeing that as like, yeah, that's what I would do sport because of that relationship of like having that really close seriousness over silly things, but also just like that camaraderie and like how much they care about each other.
Yes.
The immediate acceptance of Zorro to Van Damme to Zorro was really great. And then also that happening on top of Cullen's fears about being accepted was such like, because like when you're in that and you're like, oh my God, what are these people that care about me gonna think? What's their reaction gonna be? And like meanwhile, like right in front of him happening is just a blatant acceptance of whatever someone is saying kind of thing.
That's interesting.
And so like it's that thing of you have the goggles of fear, like the tunnel vision of fear is blocking out the fact that like everybody
lost it when Isaac was like, what about me made you think you couldn't tell me? That was really the thing where you're like, oh, this is that really got me. And he had to be like, it wasn't about you. I was 90% sure all of you would accept me, but that 10% just ate away at me. I'm like,
when you make gay jokes in the locker room, it's gonna make me think, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, I don't know what you're gonna think of me. But yeah, it was that moment, which that is like, that's why. But you can also extrapolate that to so many other things. Like if you really care about someone, you allow them to know you and help you. And like that vulnerability, when you hold it from some people, it then makes them start to be like, am I the problem? And so like having open and honest relationships basically is just like as much as you can when you are safe to. And also the inclusion of Trent Crimm this season as one of the main cast.
Yeah.
So good. Such a good choice.
He's so fun.
Especially after you get it for the, oh my God, is he going to out Colin? Like, it's just the moments he has with the team and the Diamond Dogs. And
I know.
Very good.
Diamond Dogs.
He's very good. Jeremy Swift's character, Higgins, is also another example of like, he is a kind person. And I think being around Ted gives him the courage of his convictions to stand up to Rebecca. But he was not Ted's kindness transforms everyone in different ways, but for Higgins, it just like gave him the freedom to be who he really is, which I love that. And he's such a smaller part, but
him and Will's scene when they're
at the jazz club,
so good. That was the one thing, and we can talk about it with the finale too, because of how Roy and Jamie do the thing that they do, which I'm disappointed in those two. I'm very kind of disappointed that they did not end with a throuple. Should have happened.
Oh.
That's their interactions this season, the three of them. I was like, I could see, not that I think they were going to do it ever, but it's one of the things that if you're ever going to do a throuple in some sort of mainstream show, man, that would have been a really organic build up to it. Because especially at the end of the last episode, which is why I'm kind of disappointed a little bit with, like, I get it because they're Roy and Jamie, so it makes sense. But I'm a little disappointed because they ended on such a high note. I'm like, oh, cool. The season before the finale was going to be the one where they like resolve a lot of things. And then this episode starts and it's suddenly like Jamie and Roy are like now like, oh, I have thoughts about Keely, and I'm really glad that they just let her be. And
and that she was like,
Keely
you
Jones,
don't get to choose.
woman.
What are you doing? I was surprised. I mean, obviously they reveal that it was Jamie who had the video, like she had sent the video to. I thought it was an old video. I thought it was from like, so Keely's video that gets leaked.
Yeah.
I just assumed that had been like it had been from years previously.
Yeah, I think so.
That's what the implication was.
Yeah, it wasn't that she was cheating with Roy.
No,
but it would have been
yeah.
after she and Roy broke up. But I assumed that it was like, this video is from way back in the day.
When they were dating.
Yeah,
that's what my understanding of it is.
Okay,
Did
but
they
then
drop a line that
well,
says...
in the end, when they're getting in the fight, Jamie's like, that video that was leaked was for me. And then Roy's mad because Roy's like, it's been a month. And Jamie's like, well, that video is for me. I'm like, yeah, but if it was from 3 years ago, who cares? So that, I was confused about that.
I think it was just him. They were, again, because they weren't thinking about Keely. They were only thinking about themselves. He was using it as ammo. Well, did she ever send you nude photos kind of thing?
I see. Okay.
And then Roy was like, we hooked up a month ago. That was the thing.
Right.
Because then he reacted like, oh, that means that's more than the nudie video I got however long ago.
Okay.
I don't think the implication was ever that it was recent. I think
because then I was like, are they implying that Keely and Jamie got together after Keely and Roy broke up?
Yeah, because even the way she reacts when it happens, she's like, it's a long time ago. When Jack is there, like, comforting her.
That's right. Okay.
So it definitely was at least before or during season 1.
Got it. Okay. I'm glad we worked that out. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
This is the service our podcast provides.
I want so many charts. I want a timeline. I want like a ripple chart that shows impact.
I want it's like in like Grey's Anatomy when they have the flow chart of, or like the connect the dots of like who slept with who and who makes that means they're like 1 degree of separation in a relationship. But instead of sex, it's like
the kindness,
ethical growth, kindness, like the kindness ripple.
I love that.
But yeah.
Also, shout out. Okay, well, I mean, we're moving into finale. Shout out to the whole crowd calling Rupert a wanker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sassy getting to deliver just one decisive strike in that last episode to Rupert. So good. Also, Rupert, the episode where he and Rebecca are being pitched the league, and like there was something really beautiful about that for Rebecca's growth as a character, and finally like putting the nail in the coffin of that situation. It was really great acting on both parties, and the actor for Rupert, I really feel like was given more. Again, there was a lot of time this season, so a lot of the side characters got more time to do things.
Right.
And I think out of all the characters that like in previous seasons was just there to be mustache twirling, we got a look at like, yes, he's still conniving, but we got to see like, why did Rebecca ever end up with him in the first place, kind of thing.
Right.
What was the charm? And you see it in that season, and you see it too executed in the way of like very charming, but also very manipulative, because he goes in for that kiss, and it's like, no, you dumbass. We were having a moment that could have been platonic, but you are so focused on Willie downstairs that So I was really glad with how that ended for him, getting just like
the shot of him walking across the pitch with his black like leather trench flapping. It was so
Star Wars villain.
Yes, it was so.
Well, his
like, from
window in his
book.
office.
Oh yeah,
was Palpatine's. That's literally Palpatine's window.
Oh really?
Yeah. So that's that was like it was literally the whole season was. Oh, Nate's Darth Vader. That's Palpatine.
Yeah.
And Ted Lasso's Obi-Wan Kenobi was like the whole thing.
Yeah, which is in. I mean, that's through from the beginning, I guess. But
but no, Rupert's little walkway, and also I forgot because I rewatched season 1. The guy that gets knocked down was the original coach of the team, just raging misogynist and stuff. So I was like, oh, look at the it's the TV guy was the first thing I said when he came up, and then I realized like, oh. Shit, he's gross. Good. He got his laid out.
And even that, like at the end when Ted kind of gives him a nod after Rupert walks away, like, he's not great, but Rupert just treats everyone so badly. Yeah. And it's interesting to me, like, which I'm glad they didn't spend too much more time on it, but like now he might lose his team because he's been accused of sexual misconduct. I'm like, this can't be the first time. Like, what? So anyway, I was like, oh, this is, most of the shows I love are in some way a fairy tale, right? The West Wing I love. It's a fairy tale about America. And this felt, there's definitely a lot of times where Ted Lasso feels like a fairy tale, like, oh, look, this guy who's awful. All of a sudden, his former assistant and his soon-to-be ex-wife are teaming up with his other ex-wife to take him down. Like, sure.
Well, I
Wouldn't
think
that be
when they
something?
decided not to do COVID was when they firmly planted themselves in a bit of a like a more like everyone gets their comeuppance and karma's a thing kind of reality.
What do you mean not do COVID?
They actively made the decision not to try to incorporate COVID into the show because they were shooting during COVID.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, they so a lot of shows. You don't watch a lot of TV, right?
No.
Okay, a lot of shows in the last 2-3 years did COVID storylines,
Sure.
and like Grey's Anatomy did a big one where they then after they fixed COVID, like not them the staff, but like the world
Yeah.
in general of that series, they had little tags at the end of every episode for like a season after that were like, we're in a post in the show we're portraying a post-COVID world that we hope to achieve one day. Please mask up, get vaccinated, all that stuff. Whereas Ted Lasso very firmly decided, I think it's going to benefit it greatly of like going back and rewatching it. It removes that level
Yeah.
of like,
And we don't really know what years that's happening in. I mean, we assume it's now, but it doesn't have to be.
well, it starts in 2020. They say the date in the first
Oh,
episode.
do they?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah. Also, shout out to Barbara, that weirdo. I love her.
Yeah. The CFO for Keeley.
yes, Katie Wicks.
Yeah. So good.
Just one of my favorite wacky characters. Like, she's like very all business, and then Keeley sees her snow globe collection, and you get this little like, oh my god. And then she's just such a weirdo who's like just slowly warming up, obsessed with Rebecca, and just like very.
I wish we
So
got
good.
more of her instead of Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Because then you have kind of Keeley being the Ted Lasso to a character.
I kind of wish that I mean, whatever.
Mhm.
It's brilliant. I can't actually do this, but I wish a little bit that like Keeley had gotten her big chance to have her own PR firm right now. So then a spinoff could have been, what is KJPR like?
Yeah.
Right. And like,
Mhm.
how does Keeley, Ted Lasso, this office, and deal with the pressures and like still have Roy and Jamie there, and like you could kind of move the premise to a different location instead of having it be Ted Lasso. That could have been a legitimate spinoff maybe, but it felt like they were trying to backdoor pilot it throughout the whole season. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's too much.
The actor who's one of the creators,
Yeah.
whose name is escaping me, and if Betty has a great.
Yeah, it's Brendan Hunt.
Great. He did an AMA on Reddit
Oh, yeah.
a couple days ago, and he answered a lot of questions. And one of the questions that was asked was like, "Are you guys planning on doing a spinoff?" And like, we need to decompress. We are tired. We
Yeah.
did a lot this season, but I like that they left open enough that like they could easily do AFCL Richmond's Women's League,
Yes.
like as a setup, and
Oh,
it gives you
yeah.
so many opportunities to focus so much on Rebecca and Keeley,
Yeah.
and like have Higgins be a main character, and then explore that and have the opportunity to have the other characters show up. But I really hope if they ever do make that they don't just make it the men's team teaching the women's league how to do things, because that's
No.
just not necessary. But
I want a
I
man's
could
league
take or
person
leave
to
this.
show up and the women to just destroy them, and they're like, "Yep, that's fair."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think I was really happy with where Rebecca landed this season.
Mm.
I loved the episode she had with what's his name?
Does he say his name at the end?
Nope, he does not. She gives Rebecca. We don't get his
We
name.
never get his
Yeah,
name.
but
Mr.
he's-
Amsterdam.
yeah, he's Dutch and he flies.
Oh, the Flying
Flying
Dutchman.
Dutchman. But I really,
yeah,
I
which
love-
is a ghost ship.
right. I think he was dead the whole time. It's like Lost. I really loved their episode, and then the like just getting that confirmation of like they found
Yeah.
each other again, because it
Yeah.
was such a beautiful thing. And I also love that the young actress that played Rebecca's younger reflection in the episode 2 or 3 episodes prior, when Rupert and her go to
Edward Akufu's league thing.
Oh yeah,
she's
yeah.
looking at me. That's the same actress that plays the little girl.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. I
Yeah.
missed
I
that.
thought she looked similar. I was like,
Mhm. Yeah.
is she seeing tiny her, or is she seeing an actual little girl here?
Right. There was that moment of like, how much of this is a hallucination that Ted's just having on the
whole
plane?
series.
Right. But yeah, I loved where Rebecca landed just throughout the whole show.
Yeah, I was thinking on the way here, I was like, which character's arc is my favorite? Because they all grow so much, and Rebecca's is awesome. Jamie Tart might be my favorite. Just so powerful, and I think it is. It's probably because I have a 15-year-old nephew who often reminds me of Jamie Tart, like season 1 Jamie Tart, because he's 15, and he's not Jamie Dart, but I'm always like, watch Ted Lasso.
Right. If I had Ted Lasso and Steven Universe when I was significantly younger, I would have avoided so much therapy. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
How
Saved us
much
all
I
the
very
money.
much want to make my mother watch this show because I want to have the thank you and fuck you conversation with both my parents.
That was, we didn't talk about that at all.
Yeah, the
The
moms.
mom scene, the mom episode was so good, but that was her finally saying your son misses you
Yeah.
was fine. Because that was the episode after he had his like breakdown and went to the restaurant and formed the whole Lasso
Yes.
plan.
Total
And
football,
like that whole thing was him finally like, it's like, okay, I missed my father too much. And I don't want to do that for my son. I don't think I'm doing that for my son. To then have your mother show up and go, your son misses you. And based on your interactions with your kid in the last we saw him when he was in town and all that stuff. It just, that was such a good, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that acting right there with Jason Sudeikis just like barely getting the words out, crying is so intense. As someone who did not see my nephew for 3 years because of the pandemic, 3 years is a lot of time to miss in a child's development, and it is heart-wrenching.
Yes.
Yeah. I know the show was produced over like 5 years kind of thing because the kid in the pilot, his son,
I know.
so tiny.
So little. Yeah. He's
and
real
in
tall
the
now.
last episode,
He's real tall.
so big.
Stretched out. Yeah. But I mean, so much about Ted Lasso is about parents.
Mm-hmm.
Which so is, by the way, Shrinking, if you haven't watched that, which is also very good. Brett Goldstein and Bill Lawrence went to work on that. And I love Shrinking. I wish that Bill Lawrence had stayed on Ted Lasso for another year. I think it would have been really helpful, but it's fine. I've said my piece about that. No one asked me.
we asked you to come on the show.
I know,
Katie.
you did. You are the only ones who asked me. Thank you for giving me this platform. I trust you'll get it to the right people.
Yes, it'll be in your favorited podcast coming soon.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, the parenting stuff is so interesting. It's so powerful, and the fact that Jamie and Ted are having these similar conversations, even though they're so different people, you know.
Some experiences
Rebecca.
are universal. Yeah,
Rebecca with her mother, and I mean, I loved seeing Jamie and his mom. It was so funny. It's just like curled up, and she referred to him as a sexy little baby, and I was like, oh my god,
so much. And then
of course that's why
his
I called his mom
bedroom. That was
my
really what, like,
gosh.
the second I saw them, I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna make these three a throuple, aren't they?
Because that throuple is Jamie giving every dream he wanted
It's
as
wish
young man.
fulfillment,
Because
yeah.
they're both of the people that were on his wall. Also, his dad going to rehab, and they're in the last episode where we see him showing pictures and them repairing their relationship. That's the fairy tale.
That is a very
Yeah.
But I know, I was like, come on.
Yeah, but it was genuinely. It was sometimes you need some fairy tale because you're like, I want to believe that
everything they showed in the montage at the end of the last episode is very much that's 3 seasons of arcs right there that they just crammed into like a 30 minutes. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even Rebecca running into the pilot. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But things happen.
Things
I want that to be true.
Yeah.
Also, getting the doctor back as a full-time staff member is just like, we are going to be a football club that has a full-time therapist.
No. And
These are a bunch of sad boys.
I love that Roy's the manager. As he should be. And I love that Beard stayed, which he needed to.
Yes.
Yeah. Although in season 2, it does seem that his relationship with Jane is not healthy.
It's definitely not, but he did need to stay and be a part of Richmond. And that was also the sort of thing, like, I don't know if there's any way you could actually tear those two apart. Like, they're not good for each other, but they're also both just wild.
So this is something that came up during the AMA because people were asking about it because like people were like, she's a bit abusive because it's like specifically her tearing up the passport to try to get him to stay.
Yeah.
And like just in general, there's a lot of moments that we see from the characters where she's very like, you're coming with me, like we're going to do this thing.
Right.
And he goes with it kind of thing. And I think especially having his background now.
Yeah.
And I love that at no point in the show do we see Ted knowing the history we know about them, no point in the show do we see Ted trying to parent Beard.
Right.
Because Ted knows that Beard has grown enough that he can trust Beard to make decisions that maybe externally seem like bad decisions, but he will never hit that point again.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with him and Jane is that externally, very wacky couple, but at the same time, their energy matches so well that like we don't have enough information.
But yeah, they had a very back and forth. Like sometimes that's just the thing that's gonna happen. You have your history and you meet someone, you're like, we are going to be two weird magnets bouncing off of each other.
So, do we have any big thoughts that we didn't get to because we are coming up on time? I know you have to get rocking and rolling.
And I would just feel like we could just keep going.
We could keep going.
We can wander, and people will let us.
We'll do a rewatch podcast in a couple of years. That's what
that'd be amazing. Yeah. I think overall, any nitpicky critiques I have of this season are just that. Ultimately, like the world that they created and brought us into, like my real world is better because of that. And I'm so grateful. And I do have Little Believe icons all over. And
the players bringing all their pieces out. They saved all the pieces that he tore up.
Yeah, like that. Sorry. So that is something. I thought at the beginning of the season there was a new sign on the wall.
No, it was the same sign that Nate had torn in half, because remember he put it back up.
But then it wasn't there, I guess. So they all had pieces of the original and they put it back together.
Because then mid-season, Ted tore it down and tore it up in front of them and threw it on the table.
Oh.
And then he left. They never even show it getting thrown in the trash or anything.
Oh, that's where the pieces came from.
Yeah,
I don't remember him doing that. Why did he do that?
Because they saw that they'd just seen the video of Nate tearing up the sign, and he was proving the point to them of like, that sign doesn't matter.
Oh,
they saw the video and then they played against.
They played horror.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and that's when they had like had the fight and everything. Okay, I'm sorry. I had this. Normally, I was rewatching every episode,
but they were so long that you were.
I didn't rewatch this season
because that whole episode was like Beard and Roy being like, "We need to show them," and then doing it anyways, which a little bit also contributes to that they don't need Ted anymore, because whether or not it was the best decision, they made a decision.
That's right.
Which when Ted came in, it was very much like nobody's making any decisions around here.
Right.
So but they did.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did they get those pieces? Like, I completely missed it. But anyway, cool. Thank you for explaining that. I cry, even though I didn't understand how they had the pieces.
It was.
I cried when they put the puzzle together.
I think that was the thing about this. And I mentioned Steven Universe earlier. Steven Universe was my show that like, whoa, like life-changing, kind of did a lot for mental health stuff. I really am excited that this show exists and was executed the way it was with mental health. I really hope that because of how popular it was, that it hits the people it needs to hit, because it's a sports show. It handles toxic masculinity in a way that I don't think a lot of shows that would appeal to mainstream audiences does. I think that it is the appreciation about the show on a global level has been really deserved, because for as much as it's a sitcom, it feels like so much more of a love letter to just what it is to be human.
Yes.
And that's why the sport, like, because we're not sports people at all. Like, me and Bob don't watch sports. Meanwhile, we were like, every game they showed on the show, we're like, yeah, let's go, Richmond. And we're not, that it was never about the sports. It was about the people.
Right.
And it wasn't about Ted. It was about Richmond. And I love that. And I love that that's where they landed with that.
Yeah.
Katie Tarara.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you would like to plug or anything people should do?
Sure. I would love for people to head on down to the Arcade Comedy Theater at 943 Liberty Avenue for 7 shows a week of comedy shows that exist and then are gone. Unlike Ted Lasso, where we will be rewatching forever. The cool thing about improv and even stand-up lineups and sketch shows is they happen and they don't happen again. So every time you're in that room, you're seeing something special and magical that doesn't exist again. And so when it's transcendent, you are lucky to be there, like some shows I've been to this week. And when they're not great, that's okay, because there's another one coming down the line. When is this coming out? When is this?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll have the link to Arcade's calendar in the thing, and people can go look. But
it'll come out within June.
Cool.
Right?
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
so if you're listening to this around the time it releases, you can get a summer pass to see lots of shows at Arcade.
Yes.
Which is
as many shows as you want.
Yeah.
You can come to every show for $99.
Exactly. A flat fee to just see a whole bunch of comedy, and we would love to have you.
That's right. And we have air conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah, they have air conditioning.
Added a little note to the sign. It was like, yep, people Yes.
We've talked about arcade a lot on here. We hosted our 100th episode
Yes.
at Arcade Comedy Theater because it's very important to Bob and I. It's where we met. It's where we discovered that, oh boy, we're stuck together like glue. And then the arcade's been very good to us, and we always wish I could go more. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, and take classes there because that will. You want to talk about life-changing? Or like if you're listening and you're not in the Pittsburgh area, but you're in an area that has an improv theater, and you've kind of been meandering and looking for a thing, and you can't commit to acting because you have the memory of a goldfish, check out improv, because oftentimes improvisers, as far as what I've seen in the arts community and theater, they're the most collaborative and most open to change and growth, and it's a really beautiful thing. And Arcade really exemplifies that with, I think, the community and all the people that we've been very fortunate to meet, including Katie.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad we finally got you on. That's been
Me too. Thanks for having me. And Ted Lasso, of course, was created by people who met as improvisers at Boom.
Yes. If you want to make a show on Apple Plus TV streaming service, go take improv classes at Arcade Comedy Theater.
Yes.
And
It's
you too could be Jason Sudeikis.
it's a 4-step process.
Yep. Literally take 101, write a sketch, go to Apple, Mr. Apple, and then make a show.
There you go.
And you
Mr.
can
Apple, give me a show. You can,
go.
I could. You can find me at A Small Frog Art on Instagram or smallfrogart.com if you want to just buy some art. I have Pride stuff.
You want to say that with a little more pride?
I have Pride
There
stuff. You can get stuff with rainbows on it from an actual rainbow.
Nice.
So yeah, don't support big businesses that do the rainbow washing. There
Support
are so
the little businesses that wash rainbows.
I do
You
take
do.
care of my hygiene. So yeah. There's so many small queer independent artists that you can find who make wonderful designs.
They should
and
follow you.
They should follow me,
Yes.
and I'll be sharing my friend's art on Instagram as well.
And you can visit us at www.thebutchandthebie.com. That's AND, not ampersand, because the internet does not like ampersands. And we've got all our episodes and stuff. We've got a couple more coming out. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Katie.
So glad to be here. Thank
And
you.
be a goldfish. Bye.